Yeah.
You're set here? Steve and I called a meeting of the Government Operations Committee for Monday, August 15th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Petrella.
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Besner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Calamaris. Payleitner.
Here.
Bongard.
Here.
Bancroft.
Here.
Lencioni.
Here.
Thank you. We have two omnibus items tonight. Can I have a motion and a second to approve those, please?
So moved.
Moved by Besner,
Second.
second by Warball. Roll call, please.
Petrella.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Besner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Payleitner.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Bancroft.
Yes.
Lencioni.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. The Police Department, 4A, recommendation to approve a proposal for a new massage license application for Fox Valley Massage Therapy located at 115 South 2nd Street, Upper Unit in St. Charles. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Sokaitis. So this appeared earlier this evening with a 3-0 recommendation at the Liquor Control Commission. Alicia is not here. I excused her attendance due to a family matter, but she did appear at the Liquor Control Commission. So Alicia Roman is the applicant petitioner. She's a certified state licensed massage therapist. She resides in South Elgin and has done so for many years. She was formerly employed by Massage Envy in South Elgin for 9 years. She's looking to occupy 115 South 2nd Street Upper Unit. This is a single-person massage appointment only, so there's no need for supervision or any additional manager personnel being present. All her RSVPs and those that attend and go through massage are set up through a web portal. Alicia was here and answered questions from the Liquor Commission. Her background was clear of any issues. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So move.
Moved by Warball, seconded by Lencioni. Roll call, please.
Petrella.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Besner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Payleitner.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Bancroft.
Yes.
Lencioni.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. 4B, recommendation to approve a proposal for an A1 liquor license applications for Max Beer and Wine Spirits located at 201 West Main Street in St. Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Sokaitis. So Pratik Patel, the current owner of Hops and Barrel, had a family issue come up with some health of some family members. He's done an asset sale to the petitioner, the applicant, Mr. Chahardi. Mr. Chahardi is a former manager of liquor stores in both Streamwood and Arlington Heights. He's a Schaumburg resident. There was no issues whatsoever in his background. We checked with both municipalities. He's here to answer any questions you might have. This will take place after the issuance of a liquor license, and this too advanced with a 3-0 recommendation at the Liquor Control Commission.
Any questions or comments? Yes, please.
No issue with this. But I do have just a little, I'm curious why on the detective's report it says what ward it's in.
Says, excuse me?
What ward it's in.
I saw
Okay.
that too.
Yeah, I just was wondering, because it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, we're elected to represent citizens of that ward, and we all
I saw
have
that
buy-in
too.
on the, okay.
We typically don't put those in.
Okay, I thought it was new. Okay,
But
thank you.
good catch.
Thank you.
Tells me you read the packet.
I passed, yes.
Can I have,
Oh, move for approval.
moved by Rita,
Second.
by Warball. Roll call, please.
Petrella.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Besner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Payleitner.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Bancroft.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. 4C, recommendation to approve a proposal for B1 liquor license applications for Mr. Hibachi Express and Sushi located at 2762 East Main Street in St. Charles.
Excuse me, sorry about that. So for the next item, I know that there has been some questions, and there probably will be some questions, so I've taken the liberty of having some prepared remarks that I did earlier this evening at the Liquor Control Commission. This did advance with a 2-to-1 recommendation, so I think some of the things that I'm about to say as far as my remarks might probably answer some of your questions, but if you'd indulge me for a few minutes, let me read the following. So Mr. Hibachi Express and Sushi at 2762 East Main Street initially applied back with the city in February of 2022. The application packet was revised after several months and meetings to ensure compliance with our applicable codes. An extensive background followed, including verification of insurance, a site visit with photographs, a review of floor plans, a business plan, a menu overview, and copies of Bassett certifications. The site itself is 2,800 square feet of indoor dining, which features a sushi bar, 6 hibachi tables or grills, and several other tables and chairs. Mr. Hibachi currently has $0 in alcohol inventory, but once they are granted a license, should the council decide to do so, they plan on having between $5,000 and $6,000 of inventory. The owner is planning on selling alcohol as soon as his license is approved, as they have been in business for several months without a license. The owner describes his establishment as a hibachi restaurant and sushi bar that will also offer bottled beer and mixed drinks along with their food offerings. The owner was employed by Ju Rin in South Elgin for a period of at least 10 years, and it was shut down due to COVID restrictions. Due to that restaurant being closed, the owner and petitioner formed Mr. Hibachi Catering, based out of Elgin initially and now St. Charles. After learning the space located at 2762 East Main Street became available when the House of Tokyo abandoned their lease, the owner opened the St. Charles location and extended significant capital in its remodel. The location is operational for dining, and they are now seeking a liquor license along with their food offerings. They are not seeking a late-night license, nor do they plan on having beer on tap. Now, it should be noted that while this process was pending, and like I mentioned, this is going back now 8 months to February, sake was dispersed by a hibachi chef to one of our officers after we received a tip of its presence inside the restaurant. The business was cited accordingly, and a liable finding was entered in local adjudication against the business. A fine was paid, and since the violation, there have been no other issues at the premises. Sake is often used in Japanese cooking. If any of you have been to an hibachi facility, you've noticed the smoking onion. Sake is sometimes the element they use with the fire to create smoke. So the owner applicant, as you probably read in your adjoining background packet, the owner applicant, which is Ricardo Ricky Melendez Hernandez, is present. He does have a previous criminal conviction that does not necessarily prohibit the possession of a liquor license. The owner applicant has been very transparent through our process, our background, and accordingly, I offer you the following. 15 years has elapsed since the incident occurred. The applicant was assigned probation in the matter and successfully completed its term without incarceration. The applicant is now married and has 5 children. The applicant petitioner has lived at the same address for 10 years with no reported contacts with his home law enforcement agency, the City of Aurora. The applicant petitioner has worked in the restaurant industry for a period of 12 years with no reported liquor violations. This is a B restaurant concept and not a tavern or a late-night bar. The applicant did everything within his power to expunge or modify his conviction to no avail. He is not eligible for expungement because, per our state statute, his case is a felony conviction. Therefore, he's exempt from that as being a candidate for expungement. I also talked to our state's attorney, Jamie Mosser, and nor is the petitioner candidate for Senate Bill 2129 as part of that reform. I know you've read the letter that he's attached in the packet. Once again, he was not incarcerated, so he wasn't eligible for that matter. The applicant petitioner did reach out for a local senator. I talked to Senator Vila's office. They assisted Ricky with this situation, and after failed attempts towards reform, the senator authored a recommendation letter, which I've included in your packet. I'd like to mention that the applicant has invested significant capital in this business venture, along with his catering business, and alcohol service is a functional component of his business to remain competitive. I'd like to note that it's ancillary to food offerings and not the sole object of his business. The applicant met with me numerous times through this process. I work with legal counsel. In addition, I asked for a meeting with Mayor Vitek and Mr. Melendez Hernandez. I'll tell you that in those meetings, he was very remorseful, contrite, and I think he's learned from his mistakes. Accordingly, pursuant to state law, our liquor code says the following. License restrictions 5.08.80. A person is ineligible for a license who has been convicted of a felony under any federal or state law unless the local control commissioner determines that such person has been sufficiently rehabilitated to warrant the public trust after considering matters set forth in such person's application and the investigation. The burden of proof of sufficient rehabilitation shall rest with the applicant. I will tell you once again that I met with Ricky a handful of times over the last 6 months. I'm confident that I think he'll present himself well, and you'll see what the mayor and I saw. In addition, there's also been some questions about citizenship. I know I've talked to 2 elected officials offline. I've checked with legal counsel. We've read the code numerous times. Our code has adopted the Liquor Control Act of 1934. It's a little wordy. Mr. Melendez Hernandez is not a U.S. citizen. However, he's filed an LLC. So we believe he's exempt from that requirement. There is precedent of other license holders being in the same situation. So with that, it's my recommendation, due to his transparency and his willingness towards reform, that Mr. Melendez Hernandez meets the requirements of a liquor license. And with that, I can answer any questions you might have, and I can be more than happy to call Ricky up to this podium as well.
Okay. Any questions or?
I have one question.
Counsel?
The state of Illinois will issue a license, correct?
We have to issue a local license first.
Right.
And then the applicant petitioner would go to the state for a license.
Okay.
So once you can't get the state license without a local license.
Got it. Thank you.
But you have to have both to operate.
Paul?
What is the applicant's citizenship status?
This was asked of me offline. I'd be more than happy to call him up. That's something we pretty much don't really dig too deep into. When we do a query on somebody, if there's a deportation order from ICE, that'll pop up. Whether he's a resident alien, he's got a work visa, or he's here, for whatever duration of time. That's so long as there's not a deportation order, we typically don't divulge into that. But Ricky, you want to step forward and maybe answer that question in greater detail? Why don't you name and address for the record?
My name is Ricardo Melendez Hernandez. I live in Aurora, 751 North Randall Road.
Yeah, I was just curious, because the question of citizenship came up, so I was just curious, are you permanent resident, or what is your citizenship?
I don't have a permanent residence, but I came here with a green card when I was 6 years old.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Dave?
So, Chief, you mentioned our code, I haven't looked at our code, but is it in our code that says that we adopted that 1934?
Yes.
It is, okay. And they're exempt because of the way, or he's exempt because of the LLC application?
Chief, I'm happy to read that section of the code. I do have it up. How
Okay.
our liquor license code is phrased is a little bit in the negative. So we can't issue a license to a corporation if any member or officer of that corporation owning more than 5% wouldn't be eligible individually to receive a license, but that exempts out citizenship or resident status. So we can't deny the corporation based on those 2 factors. That helps.
Brian?
So he gets a license here first and then goes through the state of Illinois?
Correct.
The state follows explain that process. What does the state do?
I don't want to say it's a rubber stamp process. I don't want to speak for the state, but typically you come here, we go through our protocols. The mayor's office issues the license. They go down to the state of Illinois building, apply for a state license. Should they not get one, our license becomes null and void and they can't operate. But I think Mr. Peppers can probably expand on that.
Do they follow the same kind of?
Well, first of all, our local ordinance pretty much parrots the Liquor Control Act in 1934. But the chief is correct. We do the heavy lifting on the local license.
Okay.
Goes down to the state. I don't want to speak for the state, but my experience has been they kind of look to make sure that this liquor license applicant hasn't been suspended, doesn't owe money to the state, kind of on those levels, but doesn't dig in any deeper than what the municipality has done.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit more about how the LLC trumps the question of citizenship status?
Do you want me to do it? So the chief alluded to this earlier. If you look at 508080, it somewhat doesn't make sense until you dig down deep into what it's trying to do. So the first 3 or 4 or 5 items talk about a licensed applicant, the person. And it really started out with, if you're giving a license to a person, it has to meet these first 5 or 6 qualifications. I don't think I've seen a person liquor license in 25 years. So no one applies for a liquor license as Nick Peppers, for example. So then you get into the exceptions of, well, if it's a partnership, this occurs. If it's a corporation or a limited liability, then this is what you look at, and it specifically carves out that you can look for other reasons to deny an LLC a liquor license except for residency.
So the question of citizenship is irrelevant.
At the LLC level is moot.
Everybody files an LLC anyway.
Or a corporation, maybe once in a while you'll see a limited partnership or a partnership, but for liability purposes, almost everyone in smart will do a corporation or an LLC.
And I too, 30-year career, 25 in command, I've done liquor licensing for, 2.5 decades. I've never seen a person apply for a liquor license.
Yeah, well, then my question is, why all the scrutiny on the person then, if it doesn't matter? I mean, why?
Because I think the sheer responsibility that comes with holding, I think I've said this before, that, possessing a liquor license is a privilege, not a right, kind of like a driver's license.
I agree.
And should the council agree to issue Mr. Melendez-Hernandez, and I understand there's a question with his background, but that's also what the licensing period is for. He'll be under close scrutiny by the police department, and you have that ability, should he not follow the rules, based on, all the different things that we look at, should he not be a good actor moving forward, you can fine, suspend, revoke, and those are all at our disposal.
There is also that catch-all in that ordinance that says every person owning more than 5% still has to meet the requirements of the ordinance for anybody obtaining an individual liquor license. So they still have to meet everything but for the residency and citizenship. So we still look at each person that has that higher ownership stock in those corporations and LLCs, but those are the two exceptions to that requirement.
And Mr. Loney, just to add one more quick point, excuse me. It even says, if you look at our code, you have to be a resident of St. Charles if you apply as an individual.
Right.
So that, obviously the LLC or the Articles of Incorporation will trump that. I've never seen an individual, and once again, if we were to follow that and it was strictly an individual outside of a resident, we wouldn't give them a liquor license.
There's no other comment, I'm moving approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Paul, seconded by Steve. Any other comments?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Rita.
But the LLC has to be in St. Charles. It has to have a residency in St. Charles, correct?
No.
No?
The LLC is a state-created creature. It's its own entity at the state level. So again, that person resident of St. Charles is that unique, Jim Keegan had to be a resident if he wanted to St. Charles and be a U.S. citizen if he wanted to get a license.
Right.
But the LLC takes that layer over.
I thought it came up before that the LLC still has to have a St. Charles address.
No.
No?
No, I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay.
I mean, you have Walgreens and, pick multinational companies with their residents, with their place of business all over the country.
Okay, any other comments or concerns from the council or anybody?
Well, I'm just going to say ahead of the vote that I believe everything the chief said. And I don't doubt it, and I really appreciate, the contrite attitude of the applicant. I just am not comfortable right now. I just want to review it all for myself. So I'll just be abstaining and then get all it done in the next 2 weeks before council anyway, before the final vote. So I just want to explain that, yeah.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table. Roll call, please.
Petrola?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Bessner?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Payleitner?
Abstain?
Bongard?
Yes.
Bancroft?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is passed. It'll head to committee, head to council next time. Thank you, Chief. Okay, now we have 5A, recommendation to approve a resolution to allow IMRF service credit for military service. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. This item before you is to allow those employees covered by the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, or IMRF, to buy up to 4 years of past military service. So we're talking about our veteran employees. Currently, they are allowed to buy up to 2 years. If we extend it to 4 years, and this is a rule that IMRF changed several years ago, we would have to adopt a resolution at our level to allow this additional 2 years. I did want to point out that the city is known as an employer that supports veterans. We have 10% of our workforce, so that's actually pretty good. We've been recognized with several awards for that, and this did come from our employee request that would, for us to consider this, and I do think that it would be a good additional kind of support of our veteran and employees. It's cost neutral. There is no cost for this. We have about 10 employees that would be eligible for this. None of them are in any imminent chance to retire, so they would buy 1, 2, 3, 4 years if they chose to. They would have to cover the employer cost as well as the employee cost. So I think this would be very supportive of our veteran employees, and I'm recommending that the committee make this recommendation to City Council.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the, Steve?
I have a question. So obviously they pay for all the costs to buy the extra years of service. Does that mean that, so right now, I'm not involved in IMRF, so I don't know a lot about it, but what is the time it takes to get vested? Is it 8 years?
That's tier 1.
Okay.
Tier 2 is 10 years.
Okay.
Kind of a mix of employees.
So 8 is tier 1? So with this, if they had 6 years in, they could buy an additional 2, and then would they be vested at 8 then, for
right.
tier 1?
If it's tier 1, yes.
If it's tier 1?
Right.
Okay. Just curious as to how that works, okay.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Dave, second by Rita. Roll call, please.
Petrola?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Paylighter?
Yes.
Bonegard?
Yes.
Bancroft?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Thank you. That motion does pass. Okay, any public comment? Any comments from the mayor, council, or staff? Okay, none there. So we do have executive session. I'd like to have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss probable or imminent litigation per Illinois State Statute 5 ILCS 120/2, subset C 11.
So move.
I'll second.
Moved by Brian, second by Steve. Roll call, please.
Petrola?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Besner?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Paylighter?
Yes.
Bonegard?
Yes.
Bancroft?
Yes.
Lencioni?
That motion does pass. We are now in executive session.